Well, hi, my name's Paul Beck. I'm a Special Collections Librarian at Murphy Library, and we've put together a little exhibit honoring or commemorating the flood of 1965. This was the record-setting flood, the highest water ever recorded in La Crosse, and we've compiled some photographs and newspaper clippings from our collections and special collections and have put them out here in 3 display cases here at Murphy Library. The event in 1965 was about a 3 to 4 week event starting in early April with a record-setting snowfall that winter, and then heavy rains falling on frozen ground contributed to a very heavy flood and runoff. The National Weather Bureau predicted flooding conditions fairly early on, but they didn't know the full extent. And what they had predicted rapidly was exceeded. I think that flood stage in La Crosse is at 12 feet, and it went above that in about April 10th, and it stayed above flood stage for like the next 3 weeks. So in these display cases, we have photographs from special collections. Many of these photos were taken by the La Crosse Tribune newspaper back in 1965, and were later donated to Murphy Library, and we have those in our collection. These are scans and reprints of some of the original photos. We also have copies of articles from the Tribune. And we have the Life magazine edition from 1965, the April issue, which featured a 2-page color spread of photos of the flooding of the upper Mississippi. And they're pretty dramatic. Unfortunately, there's not a photo of La Crosse in that Life magazine article, but it's still pretty captivating. So in the exhibit, we also have a timeline that we put together so people can get a better understanding of the events. 2 pages. As I said, it started in early April. The governor of Wisconsin at the time, Warren Knowles, declared a state of emergency in La Crosse on April 8th, which already forecast how serious they knew it was going to be serious, and it more than lived up to their fears. The flooding got so bad that even President Lyndon Johnson came to tour the region. He didn't stay or stop in La Crosse, but he did fly over it on his way up to the Twin Cities. So the waters kept rising. They started sandbagging, making temporary dikes, and they needed volunteers. The city crews and county crews couldn't keep up. People had to be evacuated from low-lying areas like Barren Island and Green Island and the north side of La Crosse. And eventually hundreds of students from high schools and college kids from the La Crosse area, but even students from out Wisconsin. Some came from as far away as Milwaukee to help. So there was massive sandbagging efforts. They worked day and night. I think they said the busiest shift, they had 600 students helping to sandbag, and before it was all over, they used like 500,000 cubic feet of sand. They built almost 5 miles of dikes on French Island and along Highway 35 and the north side. And despite all their efforts, one dike did break on the north side, and it flooded 25 homes up there. But overall, the dikes held. They were patrolled constantly, first by city crews, and then the National Guard was called out by the governor, and they patrolled the dikes looking for flood, for leaks and seepage. And eventually the National Guard was even sent out on armed patrols because there were reports, unfortunately, of theft and vandalism on some of the homes and businesses that had been either evacuated or flooded. So they were seen patrolling with rifles armed with bayonets, so quite a scene. So they fought the flood. They were pretty much successful. The causeway did get flooded in La Crosse when a dike did break. So those businesses along the causeway were underwater for several days. I think one man drowned. He was trying to ferry workers over to the power plant. Man from La Crescent. That's the only fatality that I'm aware of. But otherwise, it was just a very, like a 3-week battle. The high point was the crest was finally reached on April 20th, At the time, it was like at 17.7 feet, and again, flood stage is at 12 feet, so well over 5 feet above flood stage, and it stayed there for 4 days. I mean, this flood did not go away. Eventually, when the waters did drop, they recalibrated the crest, and they then set it at 17.96 feet, so almost 18 feet, which would be 6 feet over the flood stage of 12 feet. That's the record. It hasn't been broken here in La Crosse, and let's hope it doesn't get broken, because this was quite the event. In the 50 years since, they say they're much more better prepared for floods. Those temporary dikes were strengthened and improved, and are ready for they're better prepared for another flood because of that, and better equipment, better communications. So, but let's not put it to the test.